on DC News Now.
About 5 of my friends' house burned down. Wow. That live up the street.
Heartbreaking scenes out of Southern California.
You see a spark really far away, and then all of a sudden the wind took it, and the fire just grew. Just came down like a snake.
The people flying into the DMV escaping the deadly wildfires as they quickly spread in the LA area.
Hi everyone, tracking windy conditions and colder temperatures going into your Thursday. We'll look at it coming up.
Some icy roads still unplowed and untreated.
You know, it's dangerous. A lot of us are slipping and people are getting injured.
Frustration in D.C. and Maryland 2 days after the storm.
Waiting for hours in the frigid cold, the thousands filing into the Capitol Rotunda to pay their final respects to President Jimmy Carter.
You're watching the station covering all of the DMV. This is DC News Now.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for DC News Now at 10. I'm Susan Tran.
And I'm Mark Hall. Chris Flanagan has the night off. A live look outside toward the U.S. Capitol tonight on this very cold Wednesday. Thousands of people waiting out in the cold to pay their respects to the 39th President Jimmy Carter tonight. And it's only going to get colder. And Chief Meteorologist Janessa Webb tells us all about the freezing temperatures tonight and more chance for snow this weekend. That's coming up, Susan, in just a few minutes. Well, a very different scene tonight in Southern California. At least 5 people have now died in wildfires spreading quickly in the Los Angeles area.
Yeah, and these images are just devastating. A home completely gone there. The Palisades and Eaton fires together have burned more than 26,000 acres. The Palisades wildfire is now the most destructive in LA history, destroying thousands of homes and businesses. And the Eaton fire forcing more than 100,000 people to leave their homes.
Actually, we spent the night here, and we saw the neighbor's house catch on fire. And once we saw the front neighbor's house catch on fire, that's when we decided to leave. And putting water on the house actually worked because only the garage burned down.
The National Weather Service says the strong winds whipped these flames from buildings to buildings and homes and treetops. And the very dry conditions only made things worse, but the winds have died down enough at this point so aircraft can start helping in this firefight.
And Susan, some of the evacuees are flying in here to the DMV, and DC News Now's Max Marcella joins us now live from Dulles.
And Max, you spoke with some of these families. They're just so grateful to be able to be in a safe space now. And what are they telling you of what they saw there?
You know, they're absolutely grateful, Mark and Susan. Look, with not everyone who was on this flight from LAX here to Dulles was forced to evacuate. In fact, some of them had this flight booked for a little while, but basically all of them said they were eager to get away from what is going on out west. They said they could smell the smoke even if they were not close to the flames, but there was one Maryland family we spoke with who you will hear from, and they say that they were in that group who had to evacuate where they were. Thousands of miles away from Los Angeles' most destructive wildfire ever, a group of people grateful to be back on the snowy East Coast. Among those on this Wednesday flight from LAX to Dulles, the Wu family. They were on vacation near Pasadena and were forced to evacuate. This is what the journey back here looked like.
Oh my gosh! You see a spark really far away, and then all of a sudden the wind took it, and the fire just grew. Just came down like a snake.
At one point, Wu got out of his car to help first responders clear debris off the congested roadway. Even for those outside of the most devastated areas, like Debbie Mardini, the sights and smells seen and smelt from a distance conveyed the seriousness of the disaster.
It's horrendous, it really is.
And still, there are people in the LA region dealing with the repercussions. American University professor Alan Lichtman is visiting his son.
And the air quality is extremely dangerous. We see the effects of the fire, even though we are not in the midst of that fire.
Lichtman's rental is also powerless, a common problem.
You're literally in the dark, you know, there's no power, no electricity, not able to see what's going on the local news.
These stunning and devastating images leaving Wu with gratitude for those on the front lines.
They're going to the foothills, and we were trying to get out.
Now, we know that all 4 flights from LAX to Dulles did take off. Now, Mark and Susan, that could be because LAX is actually to the south and east of Pacific Palisades, where we know some of the most devastating fires are. These flights were able to take off. Again, not everyone on them forced to evacuate, but just a scary situation out west, and people who made it here are glad to be here. Reporting live at Dulles, Max Marcella, DC News Now.
All right, there's so many concerns that continue to grow there. Max, thank you so much. President Biden has now formally signed off on a federal disaster declaration that will free up more resources and funding for first responders who are fighting these wildfires and to help so many families. We're going to continue our coverage of these wildfires right here on DC News Now, on air and online. So you can get all of the details anytime by going to our website, dcnewsnow.com.
And Susan, those firefighters dealing with very tough conditions. And for more on those fires, let's turn to our chief meteorologist, Janessa Webb.
All right, Janessa, we keep talking about the wind-whipped flames here, as well as the super dry conditions.
Yeah, it's the ingredient is just right in this area where you had the Santa Ana wind event that we knew was coming in about 3 days ago. What we just didn't know is relative humidity, dew points going down so far that if you have one little spark, it is going to cause this big disaster that we are seeing unfolding. About a couple hours ago, we had about 1 million people across Los Angeles County that were without power. It has improved just a little bit to 100K, and so still it is becoming a little bit more widespread the farther now you go into Oceanside. That's parts of San Diego, Orange County, as well as Los Angeles County. So those air quality alerts, they have been upgraded to code red, orange in most locations, and the fire danger is at an extreme level, and it will stay that way for another 24 hours. There is a high wind warning that's currently in place across that region. That'll expire at 10 o'clock tonight, but me just looking at that forecast, kind of breaking it down, I don't see wind gusts off the table until about 24 hours tonight. So tomorrow evening, things will start to subside, but then you have multiple fires that are burning. Closer to home, we are nice and quiet. It is clear across the region. Here's our big topic of discussion, winds along with wind chill. You combine those two, it is super frigid across the entire region. We have single digits and the teens. We also are tracking our next storm system, providing a dusting to about 1 inch of snow. We'll look at that coming up.
All right, Janessa, let's talk a little bit more how a bit more of snow overnight into Saturday. Well, that's just going to add to the totals from this week's storm and make some of the streets and sidewalks in the district even worse. So depending on where you are, one stretch could be cleared, while across the street could be a huge mess.
And Susan, more families want the city to do more. And DC News Now's weekend anchor Ben Dennis joins us live. Ben, what's the concern tonight?
Hey there, guys. Good evening, Susan and Mark. The headline here is that most of the major roads in D.C. have been cleared, but tonight, Peace Street is a problem, and we'll tell you why. Check out the conditions right here. The snow has been packed on by the drivers and the tires over the past couple of days, and the problem that will persist overnight. Should the conditions not get any better, that's going to turn to ice, which a lot has built up on the sidewalks right now, but people who live in the area are hoping for a change, and soon. Snow from Sunday into Monday, piled along D.C. city streets and staying on top of some.
I think they could have did a better job in D.C.
Swan Street, Jefferson Place, alleys along 17th Street, all in Northwest. Snowy and slushy side streets.
They can hit some of the side streets right here and tighten them up a little bit.
D.C.'s Department of Public Works has largely cleared the highest trafficked corridors, but two-way Peace Street east of Logan Circle remains messy for several blocks, and if left untreated, could freeze overnight.
You know, it's dangerous.
Pedestrians like Gira Perez are among those slow-moving across the Bryant Street Bridge. The untreated path connecting to the Rhode Island Brentwood Metro stop is clear why.
A lot of us are slipping and people are getting injured. A lot of people trying to go to work or try to go to school.
It's unclear who's responsible for the cleanup on the bridge. Mayor Bowser says residents and businesses are responsible for clearing their own walkways. And as crews continue to clean up, they're also preparing for more snow on the way. And on the prospect that happens,
damn. Only thing I can say is, wow. Bring it on, man, so we can get it over with.
So you may be wondering, why am I holding these de facto ice cubes? This is snow. It is so packed. It is so cold out here that they are ice cubes right now. And it's the snow that's still on P Street that could freeze again overnight. All right, here's the kicker. If you do happen to have a street, a residential road, who has not been cleared at all, it's the Department of Public Works that's going to have to handle it and clear it, and residents are urged to contact 311 to make it happen. Near Logan Circle in Northwest, Ben Dennis, back to you.
All right, Ben, thank you. In Prince George's County, the search for the shooter who killed a rideshare driver on New Year's Day continues. The shooting happened in Cottage City, and police say someone shot Oluwatosin Adetula several times in a parking lot on Bladensburg Road. 36-year-old died from his injuries yesterday, and investigators are offering a $25,000 reward for information leading to an arrest.
Let's take a live look right now at Capitol Hill and inside the rotunda tonight. Thousands continue to pour in to pay their final respects to President Jimmy Carter. The public viewing reopened this morning at 7. It's going to remain open through the night until 7 tomorrow morning. Then at 9 tomorrow morning, there will be a ceremony when Carter will be brought to the National Cathedral. His state funeral will then be happening at 10. This is a service that is not open to the public, but there will be a live stream on the cathedral's YouTube channel. His casket will then be flown back to Georgia, and there will be a private service where he will be buried next to his wife, Rosalind.
Well, as we've mentioned all day, thousands have stood in line in the cold for a chance to pay their respects to the late president. DC News Now's Daniel Hamburg is at the Capitol with why so many people say it was important for them to be there.
A lot of people with personal stories and those just admiring former President Jimmy Carter came here today to pay their respects. And you can see right now the amount of people still in line here, stretching down First Street, northeast side, as well as down here on the southeast side, all waiting to pay their respects to see Jimmy Carter, who died at 100. As the American flag flies at half-staff over the U.S. Capitol, thousands of people are braving the cold to honor former President Jimmy Carter one last time.
I think Jimmy Carter was a really decent guy, and he told the truth, and I found that really refreshing.
Carter is remembered by Americans from across the country and here in the DMV.
He had an impacting presidency, but most so all the public service he did after, especially Habitat for Humanity. And after spending a couple of years in Georgia myself, feeling the impact that he had for that state, I definitely wanted to come and just pay my respects.
Robert Smolik, who lives in Arlington, brought his sister and mother visiting from Wisconsin.
He just did so much for everybody, unselfishly.
Michael Rager, down from Hagerstown, may question Carter's politics, but not his character.
He was a great man, not the best president, but the things he did after it, he was a truly amazing human being.
Carter is remembered for his humility and humanitarian work.
I want to pay my last respects to former President Carter. He was the first president that I can remember ever knocking on doors and supporting when I was in high school back in the late 70s.
Fond memories for some, and a show of respect from all.
I always thought he was just a good man, a man of faith, a man of principle, and I just always appreciated the type of person he was.
President Carter will lie in state here at the U.S. Capitol until tomorrow morning, at which point he will be moved to Washington National Cathedral for a state funeral. President Joe Biden will give a eulogy, and all former living presidents are expected to attend, including President-elect Donald Trump. At the U.S. Capitol, Daniel Hamburg, DC News Now.